Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this lovely evening. Today we have with us Vani Kola, the Managing Director of Kalaari Capital. Lean in India, along with Sipping Thoughts, is very excited to host this next session on the next wave, Women Entrepreneurship. This is one of the many sessions in our leadership series, a program that brings thought leaders from different walks of life to talk about the words of wisdom on varied topics. Today's topic is all about women entrepreneurs. These women entrepreneurs are growing in India, but still only represent 20% of total enterprises. In this session, we hope to inspire women to follow their passion and believe in themselves to take the less trodden paths and definitely make a difference. I'm Urvi Juneja, VP at Genpact and Chapter Lead at Lean in India. Just briefly about our partners, let me start with Sipping Thoughts. Sipping Thoughts is a multi-platform media company co-founded by Sukirti Gupta and Meeta Gudgutia. It was set keeping in mind the tagline, Real Women, Real Thoughts. A no-judgment platform where they want to create a network of women for women. And now about Lean in India. Lean in India is the official national chapter of Lean in India. It's a community co-founded by Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg that empowers women towards their ambitions. Lean in India aims to contribute towards encouraging more women in leadership positions, taught through peer circles, campaigns, collaborations, and events. Our aim is to increase representation of women in leadership positions by enabling women in workforce. And about our speaker today, Vani Kola. Vani is the Managing Director of Kalaari Capital, an early-stage venture capital firm based in Bangalore. She is a renowned investor and a visionary known for identifying emerging markets. Her leadership at Kalaari centers around her commitment to the development of entrepreneurs and her conviction that Indian companies are poised to become global players. Vani is a technology-focused investor with many of her investments having now become very successful, validating her aptitude for picking the best young minds and mentoring them to build high-growth enterprises. Some of Kola's notable venture successes include Dream11, Cure.fit, Snapdeal, Myntra, among others. Vani has been identified as Fortune's most powerful women in business. Outside of work, she's actively involved in various organizations focused on fostering entrepreneurship and women leadership, spending time with her family. She practices yoga and heartfulness meditation devotedly. She believes in sustainable living and grows enough organic produce in her garden to meet her family's needs. With this, I will hand over to Vani and over to you. Such a pleasure to have you today.
Good evening, everyone. Urvi, thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and Sukriti for inviting me. And it's a cause that more and more is very close to my heart. So I'm really glad to have this evening of dialogue and conversation. And I want to share a few thoughts quickly so that we can spend most of our time and evening here in learning and talking to each other. So let me share something here that allows me to put together some of my thoughts. So, and then let's do this, right? You can see my presentation, right? All right, great. So we'll talk a little bit about women entrepreneurship, at least from the context of how I have been thinking about it in the, especially in the last many months. And I'd love to hear from all of you on this and more and anything else. Obviously, you know, sometimes we have all these statistics and numbers, how we are underrepresented. And, you know, there is so much more that needs to be done. But, you know, I think to always start with positivity of and celebration of our lives, there is really no limit to what we can be as women. And I think that's why we are all here gathered together. And Hold on, I am trying. Yeah. So, but I wanted to also start this with a bit of a reflection. I feel like I come from a lineage of strong women. And I think if we paused and each of us talk to each other, I think we will see that we have come from a lineage of strong women. And that's what has given us the strength, courage, wisdom, and drive to go out and accomplish whatever we wanted to accomplish in our life. And in my case, I feel like, more and more when I think about all the women that have been transformative in my life. And I hope that's a conversation we can all have at a different time in a different platform or a different context. But I want to derive that every woman has strong women in their life. Sometimes we might not actually recognize or reach out, but I think we do stand hand in hand with many other women in our lives that have made a very big difference. And I wanted to pay homage to that as we actually talk about what is not working, also, to talk about what has worked. So, if we go into the topic of the day, women entrepreneurship, the current scenario in India, especially world over, but since, I'm focused primarily on India in the work I'm doing, we lots to celebrate, right? 52 total unicorns in the last decade. We saw the Zomato IPO, the Paytm just filed, and more. I think the startup ecosystem in India is very, very vibrant. And in the last decade, I think has been extremely exciting, encouraging, and transformative. And I feel truly very privileged to have this opportunity to be part of this journey and part of this journey at this time in the evolution of the growth of Indian companies and Indian brands. But, we literally have like one woman who's leading one of these unicorns. And that, of course, is Nykaa with Falguni. And overall, if we just look at the truth, women constitute very small percentage of total number of entrepreneurs. If you look at how many companies with women founders got funded, it gets even more depressing. But if we think about how many women CEOs got funded, that's like 1.4% or something like that. So obviously, we should collectively think about what can we do to make this a better playing field, especially these are so below global averages even, and the global averages are nothing to celebrate either. So there are all the women entrepreneurs, right? And I think we need to think about entrepreneurship from many dimensions. Of course, there's micro entrepreneurship, which many platforms, and in this, and while they are very, very relevant from providing financial independence and flexibility and self-identity, and we need more mass entrepreneurship and empowerment of women. In this context, I'm talking about women leading large tech companies that are venture funded, that allows them to get access to that risk capital. And there is a reason to talk about it because, they create a certain impact that platforms provide you leverage and power to create a higher framework of impact. And that's missing. And so my focus, because of my work, has largely been from that narrow lens of where are the women entrepreneurs getting funded for building large companies. So, the numbers that I shared with you, I mean, gender equitability is still not a reality. And the representation of women in venture capital is also fairly abysmal, right? So, but there is a lot of research world over, India too, that has shown that if women have equal access, there is actually transformational gains, not just for them as individuals, but its impact on the economy and the society. Actually, there was some work from Rupa, who's a great Purushottam, who's done this work as an economist that shows that the GDP could be 3-4% higher if you had more women who were employed, first of all, and more women who were involved in ability to make leading decisions. So, it is about impact. And as I said, from Rupa's work, there is also research that shows the sort of potential for job creation, potential for economic growth, and, potential for families to be transformed, right? So with all of that potential, of course, in this context, the research is talking not simply about women at the top, but it's talking about women across the board. So I think, like I said, from sort of the focus that I've had, while technology and entrepreneurship is going to be fundamental and critical for achieving sort of the growth of 5 trillion economy, and we have all understood that, when we are able to get to that $4,000-5,000 per capita GDP, that's really when you have been able to take the economic equitability more across in an inclusive way. But for all of that to happen, I think what is not happening is the importance of women's role to be pivotal in specifically India's digital transformation, because the growth for India's economy cannot happen without the digital engagement across the billion plus people, and that's happening more rapidly than ever thought possible. And so it's important that a segment of the population, women, in order for them to be included into that economic growth, and more importantly also for them to be served for their needs and their experiences to be centered, right? We need this women in entrepreneurship and funding to be important. So while we have a long way to go, what can we do even to level playing field, right? And so when you think about big problems, because big problems have complex underlying challenges, and so they're beyond any one person to be able to solve. So most of the time we don't pay it. We sort of give ourselves permission to then say, well, it's beyond my scope. What can I do, right? So but I come from a philosophy that you have to start with small steps. You have to start with what can I do, and do that, right? If what you can do is to be one role model, or if you can be one mentor, or if you can be that, encouraging to fund, or whatever it is that you can do. So we have to solve any complex problem with small steps of what we can do. Of course, cliched as it is, every drop of water makes up the ocean, right? So, but, if we think about what's the dilemma and how do we solve, then, any aspects of this, each of us can work on, I think women in leadership have a lot more they need to overcome. That's no news to any of us who are here on this call today, I'm sure. And, there is a different playbook on which they need to prove. Access to funding, is difficult. They are not given the same kind of key opportunities oftentimes. Entrepreneurship can really be lonely. There aren't support networks enough. And, in best of times, you are doing at least 2 jobs, home and work, right? And many times, like in my case right now with aged parents, you're probably doing 3 or 4 jobs. So that's kind of the dilemma, the finding that balance. So any support, any difference that it can make can actually be helpful and transformative, and truly make a difference to build this numbers of playing due role and having due opportunity, if you will. So what is it that we can do, right? And like I said, at least I go by simple things. I think we can start the conversation in many, many spaces. We can create safe spaces for people to fail. And I think risk and failure for women has a very, very high cost in life than it does for men. And so creating those safe spaces, at least first and foremost in our mind, and of course, physical safe spaces. And we can try and lead by example. So, and how do we go about doing these three things was actually something I have been mulling about for a while now. And for myself, just to change track, I already, talked about how I feel that I'm prodigy of strong women who have helped me throughout. And, if I sort of think about the last 3 decades, I was first decade of it studying and then working in startups where I think I had the exposure and the chance to self-discover. I don't think most young girls, if you ask them, what do you want to be, will say, I want to be an entrepreneur or I want to be a venture capitalist. I certainly didn't know how to spell either of those, let alone, imagine those kind of opportunities, because never had the exposure, never had the role models. But if you take a young boy, maybe, he would say, I want to be in business, or I want to, maybe, even if they didn't say venture capital, or maybe they would say that, but, investment banking or whatever. So, but I think first decade for me was really that discovery of who I could be, which I don't think I had growing up necessarily. And then, starting out being a founder and a CEO on that journey of learning to be an authentic leader. I think that was another decade of my life. And the, last decade plus has really been a venture capitalist and somewhat unlearning. I say that because, sometimes we think we know too much, and, there's a learning phase. And then I think sometimes there's an unlearning phase. So you can learn more things. And I think in the last decade for me, it is being inspired by India, and trying to see how we can at Kalaari and I can create value by being deeply engaged in the India opportunity. So at Kalaari, I have always believed that there has to be a purpose to your work. Of course, money is a prime mover to everything. Just like for entrepreneurship, you need funding, but funding is not your purpose. Your purpose is to create a great product. Your vision is to create some value for a customer, or your vision has to be, your dream has to be about creating some impact. And so while funding is the engine, which is also why I really abhor how much we celebrate the headlines of this company got funded or that company got funded, and we never celebrate, this company has a great work culture, or, this was the adversity that was overcome, or this product, has broken this barrier, so whatever. So that has much lower cadence than just sort of the headline, because that is not the purpose. Funding is not the purpose. So while existentially we have to create returns for our LPs, obviously, otherwise it doesn't move as a prime mover. But the purpose of our existence, I feel, has been to ensure we provide opportunities for a diverse group of entrepreneurs to succeed. And I'm surprised how many times entrepreneurs feel that, you need a certain profile and a pedigree to get funded. And, it, for me at least, couldn't be far from truth. So one of the things also, I would just leave it here because we are all here together, is some of this, we have a launch coming up in 28. You can watch the Kalaari space for more details on that, and or write to me or whatever. So, we want to talk more on how we must have more women lead tech unicorns in India, why that has to be a very important mission for all of us, and how do we get more funding for female founder CEOs, so in turn they can create the role models that we so need. And when it comes to female founder CEOs, a lot of our research shows it's not simply about even getting their early stage funding. And as they need to move along into their journey, just because they haven't plugged into and they don't have access to the broader networks of growth funding and the levers that move that, they have to just work so much harder to be able to do that. And if we can do things that help women, of course, the companies and the products and the business has to be solid and sound. But so we are not talking about anything that is affirmative action or something. But even when all that is in place, I know that there is many handicaps to women succeeding in the field of entrepreneurship. So that's something I'd like us to do more to solve for, and I'm committed to do that in my role and my capability to do whatever I can from Kalaari as a platform. So I just want to leave with we talked about lean in, and we need women at all levels, obviously, but I feel especially at the top, to change the dynamic. And like I said, we need to reshape the conversation to ensure that women are heard and can't be ignored and can be provided just level playing field to achieve their full potential and success, right? So I know that we have a lot of questions, and this session was really for me also more a conversation than just a monologue. So I'll pause there and we can talk about anything that's on any of our minds.
Well, Vani, thank you. I mean, that was brilliant. And I think you set the stage, because leveling the playing field, especially the small steps and creating safe spaces. And I think the fact that we need more women to lead by example and create these role models. And I'll take my own personal experience because I'm an entrepreneur. This is my second entrepreneurial venture, but I've actually also worked at large companies and multinationals. And sometimes you get these comments, and these comments really play havoc, even for somebody who's as experienced at 25 plus years. Are you taking a break because of the kids? Don't you want to go back to a big company? Is this just a hobby? How will you sustain yourself? And I'm sure many, many women get this distrust look. And I must say, I mean, I try not to ignore it. I'm like, listen, it's a venture. It will take time. You need to sow the seeds, but it does sting. And, these type of things do demotivate us. And I wonder, because I'm only looking at it from a female lens, but do the males also get these type of questions prodded to them? And I'd love to hear your view on that, because it does sting me.
Look, achieving anything for anyone is never a easy road, right? It's not a fairy tale ending. You can look at 16,000 crore IPO listing for Paytm or this or that or whatever, but there is a journey to it. And so I think and that journey is not easy for men or women, but women are asked special questions, and like you said, that plays havoc in your head. And it's so I don't want to say, oh, they have it, the other people, the other side of the table has it so easy. I don't think there's anything easy about being ambitious and aspiring to be more, and the journey of just overcoming your own your own sense of self-limitations, and because so much of that is in the mind. But I think women are asked special questions, and also more importantly, we are more capable of guilting ourselves, right? We are more capable of, how should I say, not giving up, but we are more capable of not, standing up for ourselves, or, not having the self-advocacy to say, well, I'm worth more or whatever, right? So I think over and over, I mean, it comes up in so many examples for me, Sukriti, I think let's take a very simple thing which I suffered from, and I see many other women suffer from. I know what I'm worth, but as a CEO, I always struggled with asking my board to look at my compensation. Okay. I mean, it's not that I don't understand it. It's not that I don't know the comp surveys or whatever, but it's part cultural, it's part gender, part cultural, because, I think we're conditioned to not talk about money, or, just feel a little squeamish to say, well, I'm worth this or whatever, right? But the system doesn't pay you unless you are able to self-advocate for yourself. Okay. So I'll give you an example. I might give a term sheet to a male founder, and as we are completing the term sheet, they'll say, hey, listen, I want to have a conversation about my employment contract, and what am I going to be paid, and this is how much I need to be paid, or whatever. I've rarely seen women advocate for themselves that way, right? It's not a question of right or wrong. I'm just saying, right? So it is indicative of how it flows into everything. But things don't just come to you, right? You have to also stand up and ask for it. You also have to stand up and say, I'm worth this, right? And that comes a little harder. So it's not that for men it's somehow easier, but I think there are different things that are more difficult for women than it is for men.
Thank you. No, thank you for providing some insight on that. Over to you, Urvi.
Sure, Sukirti. So, I'm just going to switch gears now, Vani, and I just want to highlight that, I have lived in UK and US for over 13 years before I transitioned to India a few years back. I know Sukirti also transitioned to India after being in the US for many, many years. For you, I understand that after being in the US for 22 years, it took you only 60 days to decide to move back to India. What were some of the compelling reasons that triggered this move for you? And I want to hear your story here.
First, Urvi, I think I'm sort of decisive about a lot of things. When I want something, then I just do it. And, I talk to my kids about the Vikings model. If you want to, it's maybe the wrong example because it is about war, and we are not talking about war, and I hate war, but, they burnt their ships when they landed. Either you win or you die. Okay, that was the whole example of it. So you can't do things halfway. It's kind of like another, maybe a better way is, Yoda, one of my favorite characters, do or do not, no try, right? So, decide, right? I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do it. But there's no, well, I'll try to do it. There's already an implied failure about it, right? So to be very decisive about it. So I think it's very important in life to, you can change your mind, of course, but, to say, I'm going to do this, and just have the conviction and certainty of it. I think this is, critical and very important. But I was at a place in 2005, towards the end of 2005, especially after a decade, which I looked at it as 40 quarters. So I said after 40 quarters, I was done having this CEO operating role, and I was in the journey of what next, right? And I had been away from India for 22 years, and that was really the first time. And of course, I came back to India many times, but it would be a week to 10 days, and hence very inward focused with family, right? So I spent a little over a month just traveling up and down India, and just by myself, and just getting back in touch. And I felt like I came to a different country. I'm, very Indian at my core, but I felt like I came to a very different country. There was a different confidence, different vibrancy. Remember, I left in 85. But 2005, a lot had happened in that 20 years to India, and when you're gone, you're frozen in your head to something you took, and you'll relate to that, having, left and then come back. And so, and I just was so inspired by what I saw. I said, this is where I want to be for the next 20 years. And then I went home being US at that time, and said to my husband, we should just go. And, if you decide you should go, then, sooner the better, right? Time and overthinking, does nothing but just diffuse energy. So if you want to do something, just do it and assume it'll work. And when it doesn't, then you figure out what to do. But it did work for us beautifully, both personally and professionally.
Good to hear that, and good to see that conviction that with which we should really make our decisions and, assume that the hypothesis will be true unless proven otherwise. So thanks for that. Over to you, Sukirti.
So, Vani, we constantly hear that the way that women and men, they approach even funding is very, very different. Women are far more conservative and go with a much more conservative attitude. And that sometimes even stops them actually from getting, because they are not as bullish, or maybe they don't show that in their body language. So what makes a quality pitch and what catches your eye? Because I do agree with you that we do need to raise more and more women up, but maybe we also need to learn how to sell ourselves and advocate for ourselves.
Sukirti, I will talk about that, but we also need to talk about the other side of the table. I do think that there is an unconscious bias, and as a platform and as a group, because you can't do that as an individual. If you are going and pitching, you can't really do that at that time. But I think there is an unconscious bias, how words are attributed and analyzed for women versus men, and there is enough research on that to show that. So this is not sort of made up in our head, and we need to realize that. So there is an unconscious bias, and platforms like these and ours need to call that out from a broader perspective, so that there is a more awareness we create to that, and with awareness comes potential for reflection and change, right? But specific to a pitch, I would say it's not about being aggressive in numbers or not being aggressive in numbers. I think it's really about, seizing the opportunity and being able to not be afraid to say, I'm going to create something monumental. I'm going to, and I am very capable. I think actually, if I put all of that into one word, I'll go back to the word I already used, advocacy. I don't think it's not a lack of confidence. I think confidence is different from advocacy, okay? Just that presumptive, I'm going to be a great CEO, I'm going to build a very big company, and I deserve to be funded. And here is something, where my idea is worthy and the opportunity is large. Not be tentative about it, just as a tone and a personality, maybe not from intent, but from a language, because languages matter. In fact, there's this TED talk which really opened my eyes when, and I was at that conference at that time. She talked about, power of body language, right? And power of, gestures and things like that. So and I think we are diminutive in that and not large in that, So I think it's really about not even about the pitch. It's about the tone and the confidence and, the presumptiveness to just project yourself and project the power of your potential success, right? And we are, I want to say, sometimes apologetic to be bold that way, So, in fact, I'll tell you, when my kids were little, I put them in drama, and it's like, whoa, and we sometimes have this academic mindset in India. Why are you wasting time? And I was like, academics will take care of itself. It's all the other life skills, right, that really make you successful. We all know that. And the idea in putting them in drama was, it teaches you voice projection. It teaches you how to take a stage on. It teaches you how to kind of, play a role, right? And when you're selling, you're playing a role. And whether you're selling your business or whether you're selling a product, you're playing a role, and you have to get into that mind and play that role and be willing to play that role.
No, thank you very much for that, because I think we need to get that and we need to learn this skill. Over to you, Urvi.
Sure. Yeah. So, Vani, you just talked about inculcating life skills in your kid. I have two young daughters, 8 and 12, that keep me awfully busy outside of work. I know you have daughters too. And I know that a lot of your inspiration today comes from your two daughters. How do your daughters inspire you? And what is that one thing that you want us to ingrain in our girls as we are raising them?
So as you asked that question, Urvi, I have two stories. Okay, so we are, both engineers, and I and my husband, and obviously, we are a somewhat geeky family. And, I've always been an introvert about reading, and I've inculcated those in my children and so forth. So I remember when my daughters are now much older, 27 and 22, Urvi, so at a very different age from yours. But I remember when my older daughter was about 4 or 5, maybe 5, and she had just started kindergarten, I think. And she said something like, "Oh, I can't have these Batman sheets. They are for boys. And, can we get this, whatever, Cinderella sheets? They are for girls." I was like, "Wait, what? Where does this really even come from?" And I remember another time she said, well, girls can't be good at math or something, so casually, unconsciously instilled. It's not coming from home. So I was like, where is this coming from? And I said, well, why can't girls have these sheets? I mean, and this is as simple as spreadsheets, and you think about how your mind is manipulated, so to speak, and so these are the small things to watch out for, I feel, and then lead into deeper conversation. And, and I remember once the same girl, then much older, maybe 9 or 10, the teacher called me and said she got into a fight in the playground with a boy who said girls are dumb. And then, and she said, no, they're not. My mom was very smart or something like that. So, so first and foremost, just when you think of yourself as a role model, first and foremost for your daughters, then, I think the best of you comes out, right? And, you take that responsibility seriously. And I've shared this story before, but my first marathon I ran was in Athens, was in Greece. It starts in City of Marathon, but ends in Athens Olympic Stadium. But, at around 32 kilometers, I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. Okay. And then somebody came along and said, well, why are you slowing down? And this somebody I don't know. I said, well, I don't think I can do this anymore. And this woman said, no, you run with me and we'll run another kilometer. And then she pushed me along for 5 more. And then she said, look, now I want to kind of race to the end, but you're not going to give up. And in the meanwhile, we had talked, and she said, do you want your 2 girls? Do you want to walk in there and tell your 2 girls you didn't finish the race, right? And that got me thinking, it's not going to kill me to finish this race. And it's in my mind that I can't do it. And, I said, if I quit, what moral right will I ever have to tell them when they said, oh, this is too hard, I don't want to do it? Then, how are you going to tell them, no, you can do it? You can do anything. How are you going to tell them that when you yourself quit, right? So I just feel that these everyday life dilemmas, right, actually make you think deeper and more profound. And when I say inspire, they inspire you to be the better you, otherwise there isn't a reason to be a better you. The general notion of you're somebody's role model, right? But you don't know who they are and how you impact them positively or negatively. So I think it is likely to have less impact on you on a daily basis. But when you think of it in this context of what is the example that intentionally, mindfully, I want to set, so if there is one thing, I feel our daughters ought to be taught their self-worth and being authentic about their identity. And it's not about they are leading a unicorn company or they're a CEO or not. Honestly, as a parent, none of us truly see that as the value. I think you want them to be happy, content, good human beings that are, fulfilling their potential and, creating impact. And that impact can be anything. It is not measured by a material or a societal narrow definition of success, but what I don't want them to ever lose is their deep sense of self-worth and, in all situations. And I think there's so much pressure today to be something, right? I mean, we know the somebody else's Insta life, somebody else's Facebook life. And we know those are very superficial, but they still have a deep impact. And sometimes if you're not conscious about it, so to just learn to live their authentic lives, because that's the only way they are going to live fulfilling lives.
Sure. That was wonderful.
So
Okay.
Vani, we're getting so many questions. So I'm going to start taking audience questions now. We'll start with Mitra. Mitra, go ahead. Mitra Sen Mazumdar, go ahead.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I am a faculty of management. So I have to deal with the young minds, so many young ladies. But the lacuna is that, ma'am, here in Kolkata, I belong to Kolkata, in the eastern zone of India. And the lacuna behind all this non-motivation is from their parents. That is the main thing I am facing here. When I talk to them, I am role model for them, but they are having problem with their parents because still in India, the parenting is not that level that is needed. The parents, even after the marriage of the girls, they think they are their guardian and they will guide them. That's the thing. And I, sorry to say that the mindset is there, definitely. Mindset is very low. And the second thing is, in proper way, their parents are not educated in that way. That's all.
Vani, oh, sorry. Your comments?
Look, when I talk about each of us creating more conversations and awareness, at some point, our parents are a product of their own life experiences and so forth. We have to teach girls to not, I don't say break away from their family, but to be able to have conversations that can also change mindset. I remember when I first started my company, I was already away from India for, I think, 15 years, maybe 10 years, maybe. And then I called my dad and said, oh, I quit my job and I started this company, whatever, or I'm thinking of starting this company. And I thought he would be like very happy. And he went really, really silent. And then he said, but we are not a family like that. We are not people like that. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I mean, you have a young daughter, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can just fill in the blanks for the rest of the conversation. But, it also took from me saying, but this is really what I want to do. And, what is the real downside? I mean, why are you so worried? And, so with conversation, he said, yeah, okay. I mean, and then in time, he said, I'm so proud of this, right? So we have to change mindsets. We can't just blame the parents. I think there has to be, somebody has to bridge that culture. First of all, I hope, right? Because if you ask a 20-year-old, the answer may be different. I hope my children understand that, how much ever they think I'm flawed, and I'm sure they think that I'm flawed in many ways, but, there is an underlying love and commitment, and, and they also carry the risk, and their world is different from my world. And as much as I carry the responsibility for them, they carry the responsibility to bridge that world back to me, and so we can't just put the responsibility on the parents. I think we have to create these platforms where there are conversations to inspire the girls, and also along with that, teach them the capacity to have difficult conversations. If they can't have difficult conversations with their parents and convince them, how are they going to have many, many, many thousands of difficult conversations with co-founders, investors, employees, and so on and so forth, right? So they at least have to try. So I will always advocate change for myself, because I have to live my life. I can't blame somebody else for the life I am not living for myself. So I would say, let's teach the girls how, they can truly go after and achieve what they want to achieve. Now, sometimes they may not even know what they can achieve, right? So you have to kind of fire their imagination.
Thank you. We'll take the next question from Sanchita Sakpal. Go ahead,
Yes.
Sanchita.
Yes, hello, ma'am. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing this event. It's a great honor for me to speak with Vani Kola, ma'am. And Sanchita, co-founder of a global language exchange community with my friend from the US. And we have been successful in creating a safe space for women to connect with people across the world and learn their languages like English, Korean, and many more. So my question is there a space where I can have a guidance to register this community, like a company or an organization, because I'm finding it really hard for giving a credibility for our community. So that's my question to you. Yes, and also after this session, I would like to know about a space that we can connect with all the ladies here. So yeah, thank you.
That's really a question for Sukirti, right? And in terms of where you can register, I mean, I honestly don't know the answer to that. Maybe somebody else here might know, but I would just only offer a general guidance that, a lot of this comes from just exploration. And I think there must be somewhere where you can process, registering an organization like that and growing it. But I don't think this is one area, Sukirti or Urvi, I am able to offer any particular guidance. Maybe you can take that offline or tell how she can connect to the space you have created, Sukirti.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do that. And a great idea to think about how to connect all the women also that joined today.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Sarika, go ahead. Sarika Sinha.
Hi. Hello, Vani ma'am. First of all, I would like to say that you are truly an inspiration. You don't know how many lives you have impacted positively.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, we actually, I think my generation definitely look towards you for inspiration. And I would like to know that what, according to you, what do you think, what are the personality attributes which are essential to be a good leader? I noticed that you already mentioned that women, they are not very comfortable in talking about money, salary, even though they are, they are working, they are giving up their time, efforts, everything. So what do you think, like, what are the personality attributes which we must develop so that we can be a good leader?
Sarika, leadership is actually a lifelong journey. If you ask me this question 10 years from now, I'll give you a different answer than today to, let's say, at your age, what I thought or what one needs to be a good leader. So leadership is an ongoing journey of self-discovery. The reason is because the scope of your platform as it changes, right? You have to be a different kind of a leader. If you say, you're head of a country, that's a different leadership, what you need to do than if you're head of a family, what leadership would mean, right? So now you can have multiple roles. So, and you will have multiple roles as you grow in your life. So I don't want to give a esoteric answer, which may be, sort of relevant to me, because my definition of who I want to be as a leader also changes, right? Also has evolved. And it's kind of like you have to get to step one leadership and step two and whatever, right? So, and, like that. But from an essential of, let's take entrepreneurship and leadership in that context, right? I mean, a leader is only a leader when somebody is willing to actually believe and follow them, right? Otherwise, leadership is just a title. So what is it that you want people to believe and follow you on? You have to ask that question. And that is the essential question at all times. And the answer to that question may change. The question is the same. The answer to that question may change to what it is for you today and what it is for you, let's say, 20 years from now, because you have changed as a person to who you are, right? So, so if you think about it from being a founder or a CEO, a CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, needs to be a different kind of a leader today than, let's say, CEO of a 10% company, right? So it's the same way. Leadership is a very different definition based on the platform that you're standing on. So I would encourage you to find the answer to that yourself, right? Asking, who do I want to be as a leader, and what is it that I want people to believe in? And what is it that I want them to achieve along with me, right? And as you figure out the answer to that, that is really the quality, that you need to then cultivate, strengthen, manifest.
Very beautifully said. Pragya, we'll take your question next. Pragya Shukla.
Yeah, thank you, Sukriti. Hi, Vani ma'am. Such a privilege to hear you. And I would like to say that I'm a HR professional, and I have worked for around 9+ years. And my question is, basically, I left my job in last year in April 2020 due to some personal needs, family needs, etc. Now I am in a situation, where I want to get back to work. And like you said about when I heard about your journey, where you said that, you left your job and you came back to India and you started a venture. So that's quite inspiring. So I really am at a, very at a crossroad where I really want to work, and I need to understand, there is something, where I need to answer, to myself, whether I should go back to a corporate, a job, or whether I should be doing something on my own. Because even I have a young child, 7-year-old son I have. So, his studies, I have to look after him, his studies, etc. So, that there is a dilemma that I am facing. And so how do I, go about this? And I would like to seek some advice from you as to, what would be the best option to follow.
Regardless of whether you start something on your own or whether you go to a job, the role of you as a mom doesn't change. So when we have to make big decisions, we remove all the fringe factors. Okay, we can't overcomplicate big decisions. We already talked about parents, kids, all that is fine. What do I want to do, right? If I'm not happy, nobody else around me can be happy. So first I have to ask myself, what do I want to do? And if I make decisions that are compromised because of somebody else, right, then, I'm never going to be long-term happy with that, right? So it's not parents, it's not kids, it's not husband. All of that may be consequential, but first and foremost, I have to ask myself, what do I want to do? What am I ready for, right? So now you may or may not be ready to start something. That is okay. You can arrive at that answer, but it's your answer, okay? So should you go back to work? Should you start something? I would say that they are, two very different genres of options. The fact that you're, debating that option, right, would say that you're actually not ready to start something, because starting something has to be a compulsion, because it's going to consume, so much of you. I'm not saying it consumes in the sense that you can't also have your responsibilities to your family be fulfilled. I don't mean like that. It just consumes you as compels you. But if you don't feel that compulsion, then starting something will be again, because everybody else is starting something, and that's no way to make life decisions, right? So if you're even having the dilemma, right, if the question is, I have decided I'm going to start something, and this is the something that I'm so convinced I must do. Now let me see how I need to arrange the rest of my life to facilitate me to achieve this, right? So then you can work on that. But it's not a question of, do I go to a 9-to-5 job or do I start something? Because they are very different genres, and nobody sits and says, should I play chess or should I play cricket, right? I mean, you may as just a hobby, but if you're going to be a professional, those are two very different things. So, so both are great. There's nothing right or wrong about one versus the other, right? It is what is right for you. So I would just ask you to explore, first deeply, Pragya, what is it that you are compelled to do? And then find ways to, find the strength to go and do that.
Thank you. Well said. Yes. And we'll take a question now from Tanuja. And I know we're running out of time, so I apologize because there's so many questions lined up. But Tanuja, yes, if you could make it quick, maybe we can take one more after you.
Yes, I'll be very quick. Thank you, Sukirti, for this opportunity, and thank you, Vani, for the wonderful session. I'll quickly summarize who am I and what's my question. So I'm a 23-year-old young professional, and I've been running communities for like almost 4 years now for young professionals out there to help them get started with their career and with jobs and internships. So that's something that I've been doing passionately, even as a college student. Right now, while working as a full-time employee, this is something that I still devote my time to because I want to give back and I feel good about it. Question for you is, I still find myself having that imposter syndrome at times because people do say that I have a lot of skills and they appreciate me for that. And I have heard good words about me, but at times I find myself in that uncomfortable position where I do not have that confidence in what I am doing or what others are saying about me. So where do we cater to that? And we have a specific like women group in our company as well. So there also we have seen a lot of women talking about.
So Tanuja, it never stops. Okay. Every time, like, for example, when you say, oh, you're a role model, I'm like, well, maybe I'm an imposter also. So I just think that somewhere when someone says something to us, it's important that we accept it as authentic, right? And that has to be from within us. We may or may not see it that way because I don't necessarily seek to be a role model. I didn't start out thinking, oh, I must be a role model. So when somebody offers you that, right, you're like, oh my God, well, maybe I'm a good one or a bad one, or am I, doing everything I should or not? And then we kind of, our mind can, right? So, and also, so many times we have this difficulty of accepting compliment. Someone says, oh, you're looking good. Well, it's just the dress or something like that, right? So sometimes I think we need to learn to just accept what people are saying as authentic to us or authentic in their view, and be able to receive it. I think receiving is a very hard thing, right? And we have to practice it, right? And it is not easy because it may be just core to our personality, and so I would just say, gosh, at 23, I don't even know what I was doing. I don't think I was doing anything as interesting, or I've achieved anything as much as you have achieved. For 4 years, you're running a community. How many 19-year-olds do that? So, just take pride in yourself. Like we already talked about, have that deep sense of your own self-worth, and I always see this. If someone says you're beautiful, sometimes you always kind of diminish that compliment, maybe because, you don't actually think you are that beautiful. So the problem is, unless you think, if someone says you're accomplished, unless you think, hey, yes, I am an accomplished person or whatever, until you give yourself that permission, when people tell you that, it sounds fake because you're not willing to accept it or receive it. So just be ready to receive it. Assume the other person is authentic and then just be willing to receive it. Don't make it harder for yourself.
Vani, can we take one last question?
Yes, we can, of course.
We will take from Kanchan. Kanchan, go ahead.
Good evening, Sukriti. Thank you so much. Vani ma'am, I really love that thought of yours of, accepting compliments. I myself face a lot of issues while, when people compliment me. So I think I will try now to change myself and start accepting compliments. So that is a great learning for me. A question which I also wanted to ask you was that what if you go to your customers or let's say even investors and you find it difficult for them to take you seriously? Is this something that, other women also experience, and how do you overcome that? I'm asking that because, I'm the founder of Loan Genie, which is a lending fintech based out of Bangalore. and we are a for-profit with purpose, and I'm looking at raising a seed fund. But I think I do face these issues at times wherein I feel that maybe even my customer or the investor at some times they are not taking me seriously when I'm talking to them about giving a loan or taking it back and things like that. So how do you get across that seriousness that you want to do this business, you will make it a success, and and hence some kind of support is required.
So, Kanchan, I'm sure everyone faces it in some form or the other, right? Sometimes we don't need to fight this battle so hard. If someone is not willing to take me seriously, despite my best effort, just like with the compliment thing, it's important to not say it's me. It could be also them, right? So now, of 100 people, if 2 take me seriously and I use that opportunity and can prove something, you will have to prove doubly hard, and when you prove, when data is there, it's not like, people can ignore data, right? So they can ignore idea, but they cannot ignore data. So I would continue to not be dejected and seek those people who do take me seriously, right? It doesn't mean along the way there isn't self-learning and self-development. So self-learning, self-development go hand in hand. So I'm not saying if somebody says, I don't understand your product, ignore it and say it's them and it's not me. But I'm just saying, resistance to us, we have to test how hard or how flexible that is. If it is hard, why beat our head against a wall? I'll kind of go to the next and the next, but somewhere there will be a door that will open for me and I have to maximize that opportunity. And as I kind of build it, right, the naysayers will see kind of drop off and diminish and, join the tribe. So don't allow self-doubt to really kill your strong sense of being on the right path.
Wow. Well said, Vani. And I think this is the self-doubt that really creeps into our head. And I know there's so many questions, and I apologize that we've not been able to get to all of them. There are like 15 more, but unfortunately, I'd like to get, Vani, your closing thoughts, because there were so many takeaways for me. And I think the big one is about that self-advocacy and that self-confidence that we need to get. But I would love to hear your closing thoughts as we end for today.
Look, my only closing thought I would offer is, I realize how important honestly, Sukirti, when you reached out to me asking to be on this platform, these days I tend to say no more than I tend to say yes, just because there is so much of this. Now that this has even become virtual, we could be doing, one of these every hour, right? And so how do you say yes to everything, right? And so, but I felt that it was an important platform and I must support it. That was really sort of my compulsion. And I say that from, we have to create, collaborative relationships, and we have to create more safe spaces and support spaces, right? To be able to find that inspiration, maybe not, and beyond inspiration, just even the knowledge, the access, the answers, even if you will, right? So I just think, and I thought what you were doing was important, and hence, it was important for me to be here and say that, I care, and I'm saying that with each one of us can help somebody from what we know and from what we have, right? It could be mentoring a younger girl, it could be, whatever, right? So my one closing thought would be, we have to be a tribe. And there is a very strong bro culture that allows unconsciously, again, for perpetuating success, right? And we just need to create more of those spaces for women. And, I'm glad you are doing that. And I'd like everyone here to do it in their own way. So that would be my sort of hope and thought.
Well, thank you, Vani. Thank you so much. The comments that are coming in, you can see them there. So eternally grateful. Thank you for the wonderful session, informative, insightful. I mean, these are just the words. They're inspired. I think lots of people are looking for new ways to connect. But with that, on behalf of Lean in India and Sipping Thoughts, we thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Sukirti and Urvi, and all the participants who have taken time out on today is Saturday, right? So
yes, it is Saturday evening.
Saturday evening, and I hope you have a great evening and enjoy time with your family and be safe.
Well, thank you once again.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.